I think a lot of us can relate to not really feeling good in our bodies and being a little insecure. I was in high school one time and some girl told me that her arms were bigger than mine. And that's when I was like, I have to start training right away because my self-esteem is at an all-time low. How do we get someone to feel like they got a workout? We get them tired and we get them sweaty, right? Both of which are not necessarily indicators of a great workout. That's why I'll never have a client do a burpee. I hate burpees. I think they're a useless exercise done by trainers who look around and go, I guess we'll do burpees, And I think a lot of times we have this idea of like, oh, I screwed up, I failed, I got to get back to it. And I want to just kind of dispel that idea for a second and just give you the encouragement that it's about not quitting. You can't lose if you don't quit.
So tell me, let's kick off with energy, right? Because I think this is time of year, certainly in the Northern Hemisphere. You're in North America, I'm in the UK, there's not much light. People can feel kind of really energy depleted. And I know that you've done a huge amount of work in relation to how what we eat impacts our energy and specifically the timing of what we're eating. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a little bit about where I was coming from because I'm big into training. I've always loved that sort of thing. And the reason I got into training in the first place was I think a lot of us can relate to not really feeling good in our bodies and being a little insecure. I was in high school one time and some girl told me that her arms were bigger than mine. And that's when I was like, I have to start training right away because my self-esteem is at an all-time low. So I started doing all the diets, all the workouts, CrossFit, Orange Theory, everything, and nothing seemed to really work. I was always kind of skinny fat. And so I was obsessed with this so much to this point where I got a job as a personal trainer and a gym. And I was like, I'm going to figure this out eventually. So I was writing a blog, doing all these things, working in a gym, and a magazine had approached me and there's like, hey, can you write an article for us about how do you eat for all day energy? And I was like, well, that's interesting because most people want to talk about building muscle or burning fat. So I was like, okay, fun, whatever. And they're like, we're going to pay you in exposure. And I was like, that sounds great. So I went and did all this research about like blood sugar levels and hormonal adaptations and circadian rhythms and all these things that were just kind of outside of my normal sphere of what I was kind of into. And I wrote this article and it did really well for the magazine Breaking Muscle. And so I started eating this way. And I was like, because I wanted energy, right? Who doesn't want energy? And the results were super, super surprising to me because it wasn't just like I had amazing energy all day, but my body started finally doing what I wanted it to do. It was a lot easier for me to drop fat. I felt like I gained muscle easier. I was sleeping better. Like kind of everything just sort of like fell into line. And then the coolest part was that I stopped really worrying about what I was eating because I wasn't necessarily on a diet. I wasn't tracking my macros. I was just using this framework. So basically what it came down to for me was how do we keep ourselves from burning, like getting super low energy, sluggish, lethargic during the day. And what it seemed to be for me was what I call the Chipotle burrito syndrome. I don't know if you ever had a Chipotle burrito at lunch,
No.
like just like a big takeaway monstrosity and you eat it. And then you like,
where it's really like heavy on the carbs and fat.
Yeah. Like
oh
it's got
my
the
God,
tortilla,
that just sends
the
me to
rice, the
sleep.
beans. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like you eat it and then you're like, well, I do have a standing desk, so I could lay underneath it and fall asleep. It's an option for me. So like what it turned out to be was that the more that you're spending time digesting, especially digesting carbs, what you're doing is you're spiking your blood sugar, then you're dropping it. And then so people will go through this cycle all day. And I think that the modern fitness industry perpetuates this myth of like, you got to eat 6 meals per day, small meals. You got to have chicken and tilapia and broccoli and rice. And that's eating clean, right? Mm-hmm. But when reality, when you're pulling blood from your brain, from your extremities into your gut for digestion, you can never be operating at maximum efficiency. You're never going to have all 100% of your cognition. And so what I found with this method is that not only are you getting better energy, but you're also getting better short-term to long-term memory retention. You get better hand-eye coordination. You get better mental cognition and acuity. You have the ability to be focused longer on that, like the deep work and the tasks that are really important to you. And I know that as a former lawyer, you understand like the benefits of being able to be like head down in your work and being really focused on that sort of thing. So yeah, it sort of all came together because when we were focusing on how to work with our body instead of against it, all of a sudden I wasn't white knuckling and having clients like stressing all the time about macros and tracking and these things that were just kind of a pain for them and just seemed to work a lot easier.